everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Modern Farming Podcast by Green Gene Foundation, where agriculture meets education, innovation, and outreach. I'm your host today, Chris Weary, along with co-host Brad Turner. Good morning, Brad.
Hey, everybody. Hello. Going to be a good one.
It sure is. It's all about beekeeping and a little bit about crop spraying today. So I'm very excited to have our guest. His name is Barry Tenso, and he is from Pennsylvania / Florida. So he splits his time, and it has a large apiary and also a crop spraying business he's going to talk to us today about. So without any further ado, I'd like Barry to come on, let us know a little bit about yourself and what you do here in the agriculture world.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on today. I think it's going to be a good time. So my name's Barry Tenso, like you said. I own Church Lane Apiaries, which is a commercial migratory bee operation. And I also am co-owner of Groundshaker Solutions, which is an agriculture drone spraying business. And surprisingly, they do tie together very well. So my background a little bit was I haven't always been a beekeeper. First generation. I was a union electrician out of Trenton, New Jersey, for a good chunk of my life. Good life. But when I was young, I was born and raised in a very suburban area in Pennsylvania. And my father's neighbor had a couple of beehives, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I always kind of enjoyed farming as far as gardening and growing stuff. So I thought that was pretty neat. So he went to get out of it. I was probably 9 or 10 years old. He brought us over, offered us to take over everything. And of course, me as a kid, I said, absolutely, let's do it. Unfortunately, my father's working 2 jobs at a time. We had nowhere to put him. We didn't know anything about bees. So he had to respectfully decline, which, upset me. But probably a week later, I forgot about it and went about being a kid. So when I was 21, I purchased my first home up in a more rural area of Bucks County in Pennsylvania. And I drove down the street very first day, and I looked over and I saw my neighbor had 2 beehives. I said, oh, you know what? Nobody can tell me no. I own this place. I'm going to try it now. So we're going into winter. So I looked at how much everything would cost, and I said, ooh, I better do my research before I get into this. And long story short, over the winter of 2014, I did all my studying the best I could, bought books, talked to people. Spring of 2015, I started with 2 colonies just for fun. Wasn't supposed to be anything, get a little honey doing on the side. And here we are in 2025. We run roughly 3,000 colonies. We have 5 full-time beekeepers and 2 locations, one in Bucks County and one in Fort Pierce, Florida. So we got a little out of hand.
That's great. How do you go from 2 to 3,000?
That
happened.
A lot of money and time. So there's always and still is a lot of trial and error. But the way it happened was, as a colony starts to grow in springtime, you have some decisions to make and fairly quickly. So as you mentioned earlier, that you get some phone calls about swarms and stuff. If you don't stay on top of them, they're going to split themselves and they're going to leave, which then decreases your honey production. And then you can't split them to make more colonies. So us as beekeepers, we're the ones that put them in boxes. So now we're responsible to take care of them and maintain them and give them what they need. So part of that maintenance is to, when they start getting larger, you need to decide, do you want to make honey, or do you want to make more colonies that could then go off and pollinate crops, or, you could sell some if you would like to. So you either have to add boxes, you have to split them. And once you split them, you add a new queen into part of the colony, because you take the old queen with it somewhere. So I decided I wanted to split. I wanted, 10 or 12. That'd be really cool. So at the end of the first year, I had 75. So I went and caught swarms. It wasn't all from those first 2 colonies, but I was catching swarms in the area and stuff. And you just keep splitting and keep splitting. So by the second year, springtime rolled around. We had a very good success rate with them coming through the cold Pennsylvania winter at the time. And here we were again. We had to decide, do I want more? Do I want to make honey? And I don't really know how to moderate. So of course I want more. This will be fun. It's cool. So, and I started getting to know local farmers because, you run out of room in the backyard and you
Find
start
space.
talking. Yep. You start talking to farmers and neighbors, and almost all farmers are awesome and they allow you to do it. You give them a little honey and it helps them with any crop they might be growing. So I got to know farmers. I thought it was great. Well, then it got to the point where I was at 150, 175. I was still going to work every day and then coming home, working the bees till dark. Then you wake up, go back to work. It was nonstop. So I really didn't know what to do. I didn't really know about the commercial end of beekeeping, as most people don't. So I looked into it. I actually went on Facebook and I found a commercial beekeeping group, and I went into it and I was watching these guys talk, and because I was way too timid to post anything, because I was just some hobbyist.
Mm-hmm.
So I met a guy, who's selling some bees, and I was like, oh, let me see what this is about. So I met him, and he was talking to me, and he said, hey, well, why don't you ever think about migrating? I'm like, no, because truth be told, I was never in the state of Florida before that. I've never really traveled much out of Pennsylvania. It was just too busy. So I first time on an airplane, flew down in December, and he introduced me to a couple of the commercial guys here who I am very, very good friends with till this moment still. And I talked to a bunch of guys, and that trip I found a bee yard. So I'm going to try this. So the way beekeeping works is when we migrate our bees, everything has to happen at nighttime because all the bees are inside the colony. And you don't want to lose your field force that's out working during the day. So you move them at night. You have to load them on the semi trucks at night. You put nets over top of them so the air can come through, but they can't come out. And then the truck has to drive all day nonstop, because if they stop, they'll start coming out and they'll generate heat, and then they can die. So drive nonstop all day and then get to wherever your destination is. They have to arrive at nighttime. So it's a lot of logistics. So I loaded my first semi truck, at nighttime. I only had maybe 200 colonies on the truck, which looks silly because a truck will hold 432 colonies. So it was half full, and loaded it. And I ran down in front of it to Florida, put them out, and the rest has been history. So we started going out to California for the almond trees in the early spring, in January, late January. So they pollinate there. Then they come back and they're very fat and healthy from that pollination usually. And you can make increases. You can make those splits that we talked about. So I took those 200 colonies, and made them basically in the 400 colonies. Then I shipped them back up to Pennsylvania when it finally warms up, and everything starts blooming. So you're essentially chasing springtime, which is awesome. Everywhere I go, something's blooming. So we got them up to Pennsylvania, and the rest is history. We just kept making splits. We got some pollination contracts, and now today we do California almonds. Then they come back to Florida because everywhere else is too cold at the moment. Then we make our increases, more colonies, fix the ones that might have got hurt, in travel or old queens or whatever might happen. Then we go to, we'll send some up to Maine to pollinate the wild blueberries up there. And then we send some to Pennsylvania to make honey, some to New York to do apples. And then the rest go to cranberries to pollinate over there by Ocean Spray in New Jersey. And then as the pollinations finish up, we start sending them back here to Fort Pierce because it's a beautiful climate for honeybees. And we fix any ones that might have been damaged in transport, get them right, and we get ready for the Brazilian pepper bloom in the fall. And we start that cycle again.
Yeah, that's my favorite honey. I love it. And interesting thing is, if you talk to people from UF, they don't really talk about it because it's an invasive species and they're
Right.
against it, But you talk to beekeepers and people who know honey, oh, it's the best. It's the only good thing that Brazilian pepper is good for,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Right. And it's a shame because it is a double-edged sword. It is invasive, and a lot of landowners don't like it. But for beekeepers, that's why a lot of people come to South Florida from all around the country to overwinter here, because you can catch that Brazilian pepper bloom. The bees, typically make a lot of honey on it, and that gets them through what we would call winter in Florida,
Yeah.
until January, when they got to go out to California. So it's very, very beneficial to us, but
Sure.
it's got a very bad, stigma around it.
So when you go to California and then back to Florida, are you missing the citrus bloom typically, or is it just
So the citrus, unfortunately, what's left of it,
right? Exactly.
does overlap with the almonds. So we do keep some back here. When you go out to California, in order for us to get paid, they have a grading system. So they have a third party that comes out and they check a percentage of the colonies that you brought into that farm, and they grade it by how many frames of bees they see in that colony. So anything that we know is not going to make that 2 to 3 day trip out to California, into the cold and not hit grade, we keep in Florida, because it's not worth paying all that money to ship them out there and stress them out. So we will put them into the citrus here. And we'll make a little honey off of it, but as you guys, I'm sure, are very aware of, is they're ripping it
Yeah.
out faster than you can imagine. It's hard to even find groves around here anymore. It's very sad.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
So check this from a business standpoint. I love it because it's like a quadruple win, right?
Yeah.
You need a place. You need a place for the bees to go.
Mm-hmm.
Warm climates. Nothing's blooming anywhere in January, but in February with the almonds.
Mm-hmm.
The California producers need the bees. I mean, the reason you're sending them is because they don't have any, right? If they had a state full of bees, you'd have no business there, correct?
Correct. So California, we go in what they call the Central Valley of California. Us specifically, not only do I put my bees, my colonies into California, but me and my partner will broker in roughly 100, 125 semi-loads of other beekeepers' bees that don't want to go out there and put them in. So in California, in the Central Valley, we go from Sacramento all the way down to Bakersfield. We cover most of it, but we really stay around Fresno area.
Mhm.
The thing is, after the almonds are done blooming, there isn't much for the bees after that. And then you have, the planes come in, they're spraying a lot of harsh stuff that aren't so great for the bees. So you don't want them there anyway. And any California beekeepers, typically a lot of them will try to move to bee yards up on the coast where, start getting sage and other things will start blooming for them. For us, we can run back to Florida, where then we'll catch the saw palmetto bloom. You have your wildflowers blooming all the time. Your Spanish needles blooming. Sometimes if you get back early enough, you can catch the tail end of citrus. If you have a good citrus yard and it's throwing off a couple sets of bloom there. But just even the climate, it's just all around good in the subtropic area here. So it's conducive for growing bees. So we get to come back. We get to make more colonies and wait for Maine and New Jersey and New York to say, hey, Barry, it's time, let's start moving these things. So now they get healthy, large colonies that have already hit their first spring. They're rocking and rolling. That queen's laying eggs. She's going to town, versus a colony that may have stayed up in the Northeast through the cold. They're not moving. They're a little bit behind just because they haven't gotten their spring yet. So it's beneficial to the farmers. They're getting larger, stronger colonies for the cost.
So they can survive the cold. They just don't. There's nothing for them to do.
Right, they can. So there are some beekeepers that actually put bees into what they call cold storage. It's massive, massive sheds that are brought down, to a certain temperature. Everybody's a little different. Some guys do 40 degrees, some are a little bit lower, some are higher, but it's a constant temperature. So the bees, the queen will stop laying. There won't be any brood, and brood is the baby bees that are going to emerge and become, adult bees. But the plus side is the foragers are not flying, so they don't expel a lot of energy, and they don't die like they would in Florida, because they're flying every day. It's warm enough for them to do so. The downside is there are some times where they will have a large loss. Like if there's some virus or something amongst their colonies that they didn't catch putting them into the sheds,
Mhm.
it could kill off, and you don't realize until it's spring, and then it's too late. The
Yeah.
nice thing about being down south where the bees are always flying, we always have to work them. So we're always in them, and we can catch problems before they arise, or at least try to stop the buck right there, and eliminate it and try to overcome it versus finding out too late that you have an issue.
Hmm.
But yes,
And
there are people.
you
I'm sorry,
lost
go ahead.
me earlier on the pollination or making honey. So, I mean, they
Mhm.
are making honey when they're pollinating, right? It's just that's not.
Not always. So almond
Okay.
trees, they will produce nectar, and they will make honey off that, which is not a good tasting honey. We kind of leave that to the bees for themselves.
Gotcha.
But if you go up into, let's just say, cranberries, for instance, a cranberry, the little vine, it'll produce nectar for the first 5 to 7 days, which draws the bees in, but then it stops, and it has to put all those sugars into growing the cranberry that was now pollinated by your bees. So we go in and we feed them. It's like a corn syrup mixture. We're
Mhm.
basically giving them a fake nectar, so they think it's still going, to keep the queen laying eggs, make sure they have enough food. So they'll make honey per se in the beginning, but then they eat it back. So we call it, they'll come out light, is what we call it, where the boxes are not heavy with honey. Where you want to make honey is, so if we're making honey down here, I'll put them out, towards Fort Drum. When the palmetto is getting, we got a bunch of yards out there that's full of saw palmetto.
Mhm.
You don't do anything with them. You just add boxes. To make honey, you want strong, big population, healthy. If you split it, you just took 50% of that population away from that hive, which is okay if you want to make a new colony. But now you don't have as many bees to fly out and bring in the nectar to make honey. So when I say you have to make a decision, it's either you add boxes to them so you can make honey and you leave them alone and let them rest, or you have to split that colony in half and take the other, 50% to a new yard so they don't fly back. And that's a whole nother story. But now you've knocked it down. And I'm not saying you can't make honey with a colony that you split. It just won't make as much as the strong colony. So it depends on your business model and how good the
Right.
year is. If it's raining too much, you might as well split them because you probably won't make honey because they can't fly. If the love bugs show up, they mess up the saw palmetto bloom. So if you
Hmm.
see them showing up, you might as well split because there's a good chance you're not going to make any honey. And
Hmm.
that's a day by day decision. Me and my beekeepers that are in the field every day need to sit down and decide. It's what they see. And one day it can look good, and you change your decision the next day because the weather just changed. It's tough sometimes,
Hmm.
like
How
the
do
rest
love
of.
bugs factor that?
So the love bugs, they like the same thing the bees do. They
Okay.
like the flowers. So when they land on it, they will secrete. Uh, they secrete basically like a scent onto the flower that the honeybee just won't touch after
Hmm.
that. So if there could be a couple of them, but if you got the swarms that you can sometimes get, out towards Okeechobee and stuff where
Oh
you
yeah.
can't see out your windshield when you're driving through them, they cover up the blooms, and then the bees won't touch it, and you can tell by going in the
Hmm.
colony, there's no nectar coming in, and it's over. It's
Hmm.
tough. So that's
I
a
thought they
problem.
just take car exhaust.
So that's the that's the problem with beekeeping is you a lot of guys like myself will do the pollination just because that is somewhat of a guaranteed thing. That tree is always going to bloom. They always need the bees, and most of the time they always pay on time.
Hmm.
Honey, it's a gamble because this year in Pennsylvania Just for instance, it rained so much that, the forklifts would get stuck. The bees just couldn't fly. So we didn't make really anything up there. So that's a gamble you take and lose. You have to decide day by day what you want to do.
And we had the opposite problem down here. We were so dry this spring, we didn't get anything blooming. And so
Yeah. Well,
we were
that's the
just,
other issue too. Yeah. If it's too dry, they won't produce nectar. So it's
yeah, it's
double-edged
tough.
sword.
It is. It's like any ag business, right? It's weather
Yes.
dependent, like growing crops. If things don't go well with the weather, you're gonna have a tough year.
Exactly. Well, that's what I say. To be a farmer, you have to have a very good outlook on everything. Because if you don't, farming's not for you. We always say next year will be better.
Yeah.
And people don't realize, at least in Florida, I think it probably varies state to state. Bees are generally considered livestock, no different than a herd of cattle, right? And everyone knows you got to work your cattle or your pigs or your chickens. It's the same with bees. You got to work them all the time, or they go off the rails just like anything else.
That is correct. Yep, and quickly too.
Oh yeah, I hear you. Quickly before we get into your other side of your business, what is the story behind the Church Lane apiaries? You have a story behind the name. It's an interesting name.
So it's kind of simple. So I live on Church Lane in Kittnersville, Pennsylvania. But that was where I purchased my first house, and I knew that was the only house I ever looked at. So when you turn down the street, there's a little mountain at the end of the street, and we looked in September, October, the leaves were changing, and every time I turn on my street, I say the same thing. Like, I love it here. This was it. I knew pulling in that driveway, that was where I was meant to be at that time. So it was so significant to me that when I was thinking of the name, I wanted to do something for that area. That area is very important to me. It's who I am. Same as Fort Pierce. Fort Pierce is very important to me. So I looked, and I was standing at the end of my driveway, and I said, at first it started as Church Lane Honey, but then I quickly realized that limits me, and everyone thinks you just do honey. Right. So, I changed it to Church Lane Apiaries, which an apiary is just a bee yard. And we have many of them, which now doesn't limit you. Now that you could sell bees, you can pollinate, and everyone just knows you have bees. Now, what do you do?
Nice.
Very cool.
So I just want to get a comment from you, and then we'll move on. Mm-hmm. So for me, the first time, and Brad, I don't know, have you ever gone in and really messed around with beehives at all in your career?
Well, I was a grow caretaker for 30 years, so I was always very aware because I was a chemical sprayer back in the day. So when I'd go to a job, we'd look for the hives, and I'd find out who they were, and were they going out, or this is what I'm spraying. Can I do it if I do it at night? So back in the day, a lot of experience. Lately, not so much.
So the point I was getting to, and Barry, I know you've experienced it. When you put on a bee suit, and I encourage anyone who hasn't tried it or hasn't experienced it, as long as you're not deathly allergic to bee stings, when you open a hive that has 10,000 or more bees in it, and they start flying all around you, and the sound and just the feeling, it's just otherworldly. And I think if you get a chance to experience that, it's something you would never forget.
Yeah, I agree. I always say it's the most calm chaos you could ever be in. You have thousands of bees flying around you, but there's something incredibly calm about working a beehive. And it doesn't make sense until you do it. Most people think you'd be terrified, but so far, everyone I've ever put into a bee suit, and they've gotten into a bee yard and they looked at how it works, they're instantly hooked and can't get enough of it.
Yeah, you're right. It almost, you get in this mindset where you realize if you aren't anything but calm, there's probably going to be a bad ending. So,
right.
Your only option is to kind of be calm and ride it out, and then you start enjoying the time.
Right. Well, it's nice. It's always interesting to see how they work, and all they care about is keeping their colony alive.
Right.
They don't mind you. If they bump into you, just because you're in their way, they're trying to go get nectar. That's their whole purpose, is to keep that colony alive. And as I always say, I enjoy being in a bee yard because whoever walks up on me is someone I probably want to be there. Keeps the people away you don't feel like talking to.
Right. That's right.
That's good.
Very cool.
No, I've never experienced that. I'll have to do it if I ever get an opportunity.
You give us a call. We got plenty of them.
Nope, I'm out that way quite a bit. I'm over in Vero and south of there sometimes. So I'll look.
Okay, yeah, we've had some in Vero.
Very cool.
So the question I wanted to transition to was at the start of the show, you said that your spray business and your beekeeping business are tied together more than anyone would expect. So can you elaborate on how the two, work together?
Yeah, of course. So I'm also co-owner of Groundshaker Solutions. So we spray crops with large drones. We personally use DJI T50s. They got about 11-foot wingspan from corner to corner.
Wow.
And that happened. The idea came about was I was pollinating the cranberry bogs, and the farmer was complaining because he couldn't couldn't schedule the airplane to come in. They're backlogged. The weather, 2 hours up the road where they take off from was crappy, but it was beautiful over the bog. And as beekeepers, anyone that pollinates will let you know is you will run into an instance, just like you were saying, where they spray something that ain't so good for the bees, and you'll have some injury.
Mm-hmm.
Now, farmers 99.9% of the time do not mean to do this. It could be an accident. It could have been, just a chemical that residual in the tank that they didn't clean out properly. There's so many different issues.
Yeah.
So I got to think, I said, well, how can we do this where when my bees are in, none of my growers ever do pesticides while the bees are pollinating, because you can't. But they'll do fungicides, in there. And some of the fungicides are not so great for the bees and the larval cycle in them. I said, well, there's got to be a more accurate way to apply these chemicals to where, with the plane, when they're coming over, it's not their fault, but when they dump the chemical, it's getting all over our colonies, on the lids, it's just how it works. So I just did a little research, and these drones popped up that they were using in China. I said, oh, that would be pretty cool, because that's a very, very precise application. It's still aerial, but you're right over the crop. You're not spraying the hives. So I did more and more research, and long story short, we started it. The licensing process takes about a year, but with the FAA, we are licensed to apply at nighttime. And we're only 8 to 10 feet above the crop, and we outline the perimeter of the crop. So you're not getting any overspray on any of your colonies that might be there. You're not spraying on your trucks that are parked there, not on your pump houses, not on your barns. So we saw it as, not only can we help protect our bees the best way possible by being the ones that physically apply these chemicals and know what was applied, there's no hiding what was applied, because we know, and we are very conscious about our bees. So now the crop is just getting that application. It's not getting any overspray, no excess going anywhere that it needs to be. We get in a more timely application than the planes can, because we can get in there faster and more efficiently. So they don't have to dump as much chemical too. So with the drones, a lot of these chemicals are down to 2 or 3 gallons per acre. Some are 8 gallons per acre, where the planes like to do 10 plus just to try to get that penetration in the crop. So now we have less chemical out there to hurt the bees. It's a little more concentrated, but it's in and out faster. And then on top of that, we get to talk to our growers, or, if we have a grower that hires us for application, but not for bees, well, now we're a one-stop shop. You make the phone call, we can bring the bees in to pollinate. We can pull them out in a more faster, timely manner, because we know that we're about to come in and spray. So there's none of that overlap where, like you were saying, you have to find the beekeeper, try to get a hold of them. Hopefully he has time to come do it, because it does take everybody's time, and you don't miss that spray window. So it kind of locks us into the ag community, where we're a one-stop shop for the most part, and things get done in a faster manner, and there's no stressing. Am I going to get the bees? What condition are they going to be in? When can I get sprayed? Who's in line? They call us and we bring you whatever you need.
Well, I know there's a lot of factors involved, but
Yes.
I'm just thinking like in terms of coverage. I mean, I know it depends on how many gallons per acre, fill ups and all that, but I mean, how many acres in an hour or in a nighttime of spraying? I mean, what can you cover?
So again, like you said, there's a lot of factors. So we are currently two of our, we call them rigs. That's a trailer with two of these drones and mixed tanks on the truck. So it's one unit and they stay on that trailer the whole time. So we have two rigs up in central New Jersey right now, spraying corn, and they're doing each rig's doing between 300 and 400 acres in an 8 to 10 hour day. So we're covering about
ground app.
What's that?
A lot faster than ground application.
Well, yeah, and the nice thing is you're getting an aerial application, but you're getting ground precision, if that makes sense. So these drones, when they fly over, they have propellers on the bottom as well, which opens up the canopy. Like we did a lot of blueberries in the spring. So it's opening up your canopy. It's pushing the corn out of the way, and it's getting that chemical droplet down where it needs to be, under the leaves, down on the ground if you're going for aphids and stuff like that. And it's had great reviews up in New Jersey so far. So we will be coming down to Florida here this fall, and we have some cattle pastures lined up we got to start doing. So we'll be around.
Fascinating.
That's a great entrepreneurial story. I'm jealous. That was awesome how you kind of snuck that in there. That was genius.
It's amazing. It's amazing when you cut out sleep how much you can do.
Who needs sleep, right?
Exactly.
Do you do that spraying? Is there any limitations, or can you use your drones to spray any kind of crop?
It just comes down to label for a lot of it. Obviously we have to have our applicator's license. We have to have our aerial applicator's license. That's why it takes so long to even get rolling. We are licensed by the FAA to fly drones because these drones are almost 100 pounds empty. So to fly a drone over 55 pounds, not only do you need your Part 107 license, you need license from the FAA to do so. You have to report everything. They want to track everything, and rightfully so.
Sure.
So it also comes down to the label, the chemicals. Some chemicals can't be applied, from the air. But the neat thing is a lot of these chemical companies are already coming out with chemicals to apply from the drone, just because it's not an airplane, it's not a helicopter, you can get right above the crop. You can do some different things that they are unable to do. So they're lowering, gallon per acre rates on a lot of these chemicals because you're getting the coverage that you need with less water, and it's more concentrated. So it's saving farmers money on the chemicals. They know it's very expensive nowadays, and they're getting a more precise, timely application. It's not going to completely replace the airplanes, but we have our niche where when they need us, it works good. If you have a flooded out field, doesn't matter. As long as you can get us close, we can fly into it. So you can still get done without damaging your crop or getting that tractor stuck or the boom sprayer stuck. And sometimes it's easier just to make a phone call and have us do it.
You probably don't do much with applying nutrition, do you? It's mainly just pesticides, fungicides, insecticides.
Yeah, so we specialize in the pesticides, fungicides. We do these drones will also do granular fertilizer. They have spreader tanks on them. So we are doing that for the cranberry bogs up in New Jersey right now. Actually, tomorrow they have to go put on some 0-20-20. So that they are also getting good results with the granular, because instead of coming out of the plane where they're throwing a granular everywhere, every last granular is making it into their bogs or onto that crop without any real excess being spread elsewhere. So there's a wide variety, a vast variety that you can use, uses for these drones.
I suppose with solids like that, you have to, canopy and leaves and things cover is
That's
important, right?
Yeah,
can't-
you have to take all that into account and look. Every job is different.
Sure.
Sure.
So what's your pound limitation? You said something about 55 gallons or 50.
Oh, so that's
pounds?
how this. If it's over 55 pounds, you have to have a license from the FAA to fly them. So the drones currently hold 10.6 gallons of liquid, and they'll hold 115 pounds of granular. They're two separate. They're different tanks. You have to swap them out. But we can fly. So one pilot's licensed to fly 2 drones at one time. So what we do is we stagger them. So you send one drone out, it'll start spraying. The other one's getting refilled. It takes us about 1 minute and 30 seconds to get a new battery in them, filled, and back in the air. So when that one's coming back, we send the next one to the other side of the field where it's working. So when they're both working, you can really cover some acreage when you need to.
So that's all GPSed out. There's somebody's not controlling what it's doing. It's mapped
Correct.
out. It's just doing
Correct.
its thing.
So we actually take one of the drones beforehand. So if you were a farmer and say, hey, I have cattle pasture, I want to put down some fertilizer. You tell us the area, we take the drone and we fly the outside perimeter of your pasture or whatever it might be, and we save it into our system. And at that point, they can adjust all the parameters. How wide of a pass do you want to make, the speed, the altitude, how many pounds per acre, how many gallons per acre, droplet size, everything. And then once you got what you want to that specific job, you save it, and that parameter's in there forever. You can go back and adjust it, but next time you call, you say, hey, I want to do pasture 1357. So we come back, and it could be anybody in our company. They just click on that pasture, it uploads to the drone, and the drone goes out and starts doing what it needs to do.
Well, I got 1,000 questions, but we don't have 1,000 minutes to do it.
Yeah, well, you guys have my number. You can call me anytime.
That is such a beautiful
I want to ask
story.
one more thing. So a grower could scout out and take as long as it could be mapped out and say, we don't need to spray this kidney shaped part in the center of this field, and you would just skip over it, right?
Correct. So when we met, there's several different ways we can go about this. We can manually fly. If you just say, hey, I want to hit here, 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 small spots, we could be in and out, manually spray and be gone. Or when we map it out and say, hey, this time I don't want this sprayed. So we can put on the map a no spray zone. So when it passes over that area, the drone shuts off its nozzles, still flies the same path, but it doesn't spray until it gets to the other side of that no spray zone, and it kicks back on again.
Wow.
Just that easy. That's
it took a lot of training. There's a lot to know about the software and stuff, but this is layman's terms. They're very efficient, and they have a lot of uses. And so far, we've gotten great reviews from a lot of universities up in New Jersey that have been studying our sprays and going out and testing everything. We've passed every test, everything that's gone on, and that's why we're so busy.
Such a great story of how tech is making things better.
Yeah,
it is the wave of the future, because these drones are getting bigger and faster and larger tanks, and you're going to see a lot more of them soon.
And with any technology, the price comes down, right? It always does. So it's going to, and you get these new wave of farmers, guys younger than us, and they're interested in that, right? So pretty soon you're going to have farmers that just want to do that, right? I'm just going to go buy my own drone, figure it out. I think it's cool. The price is right. That's great, right? It helps.
And that's you hit a very good point. So even like beekeeping, when I first started beekeeping, I looked at the average age of commercial beekeepers before I decided I want to go any further. So I made a good living. I had retirement, pension, annuity, the whole nine. And agriculture is just more fun. Who needs money? So I looked, and the average age is 65 to 68 years old. And I said, oh, wow, in the next 10 years, we're going to have a very large turnover. And there's nobody coming up from behind, and we can't survive without the honeybees. And that's what's happening. I have a lot of good friends retiring that I made in the industry. And that's what's made room for myself and the very few other younger guys that are doing this to take over. And with the drone stuff, that connects because a lot of the farmers are retiring, and their kids are taking over. So they have a much more open mindset to these new technologies coming out. And that's why we've been so very well accepted into these farms that do test acreage. And, because the old man at first says, no way, we've always done it by the boom sprayer. There's no way this can work. And the kid says, let's try it. And we try it. And they put out all the test cards, and we're getting better coverage and faster and less chemical. And then, the old man goes, okay, tell them to do it. And sometimes that's all it takes. You need an open mindset to some of these newer technologies coming out.
The proof is in the pudding.
Exactly. Exactly.
That I found that to be with skeptical, people set in their way. You got to prove it. Once you prove it, they'll accept it. But,
exactly.
In my opinion, we hear a lot of, family farms that the kids just, with everything out there today, they're not interested, right? They're not interested in working in the dirt. So as you get these things like drones, there may be someone who gets interested in doing that kind of stuff because of the new stuff that's there. It becomes interesting to them again. So that's really important, I think.
Yes, of course. I agree. We have to get the younger generation into farming, or everything is going to turn into houses here shortly. And things don't grow under asphalt so well.
That's right.
And I think all the kids love the whole bee thing. It's just beekeeping's hard work. I mean, it's manual labor and hot and hours, and that's a thing.
Yeah, you work all day, and then you got to move them all night, and they're stinging you the whole time. And that's what I tell everyone, even in Florida, I said, dang, it's hot out. I said, put a bee suit on. It's hot. It's hot. All right.
So just one thing, what would you give advice, since we're talking about it, to someone who's might be interested in beekeeping, but not really sure? What would you tell them to get them over that hump?
My advice on beekeeping is do your research first. It's not something to just go out and purchase hives, because there's a lot of diseases and pest management that us as beekeepers are responsible to know and maintain, because a lot of them can spread. If you have a colony that dies and you don't know why, and my colony, my bees go and go in that dead hive and steal stuff and bring the disease back to me, it could spread. It can damage a lot of stuff. So I tell everyone, do a lot of research, like I did. I took the whole winter time, bought books, talked to people, join clubs, join whatever you can. Go out, call me, call other beekeepers, ask if you could shadow for a day or two, see what really goes into it. Try it, open up some frames. And then after that, if you feel comfortable, then purchase your equipment and order the bees.
So either do it right or don't do it, because you're going to affect other.
You can affect other people, and it can, some people put the bees in the backyard, and if you're not maintaining them and they're swarming and going in other people's yards, then the county starts making different rules and ordinances that make it harder for people who do it responsibly and want to do it to actually do it. So education is the biggest thing, in my opinion, in beekeeping. Educate yourself first, go try it, and then if you like it after that, dive right in and enjoy it.
One of the things that we did when we were looking at bees, my wife and I, is we reached out to a local apiary. If you have property, you can do this. Reach out to a guy such as yourself and see if, we said we have lots of pepper trees and orange blossoms. Would you bring some hives? And he brought 40 of his hives, because you guys are always looking for a good spot, right?
Always. We were always looking for bee yards.
Yeah. So that's how we got into it. We had 40 hives brought out here and watched them and helped the guy, work them when he came, and helped him take them out. So that's how we did it. So that's another good way to get yourself into it. If you have, nobody's going to spend a lot of time with one or two hives, but if you have space for a guy to bring, a few dozen, it was a really cool experience to learn that. And we're still friends with that guy to the day, right? We became a friend with him, and we work with him with hives. So pretty cool.
Absolutely. No, it's a great community to be a part of. Everybody's always willing to help. You get the pinch, I promise you, a beekeeper is awake at that time of night. If you got to get pulled out, or need a hand, or you have a hydraulic hose blowout on your machine, there's a beekeeper somewhere that's awake. But it's a very good community. But again, like I said, like you did, was you educated yourself, you tried it, you watched it before you dove into it. And there's a lot to know. Like we said in the beginning, every single day I learned something new. My guys will come back and say, we're seeing this. Oh, well, I never come across that. Let's figure it out. And that's what you have to do. You have to think on your feet second by second in this industry.
And they are absolutely some of the most, for how simple or quote scary sometimes they can be. They are one of the most amazing colonies of creatures that I've ever worked with in the animal kingdom. Awesome.
Yeah. And again, that comes with education. When you look into these things and how they work and all the little things they do, they are incredible. They are the most efficient thing out there. And that'll give you a lot more respect for them while you're working for them. It's not just a honey generating machine you got sitting in the back there. You understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, and that alone is my favorite part.
Yeah, mine too. I love it.
Well, fun to watch.
So on through the questions. Brad, anything else you want to bring up with bees or sprayers?
No. If we start, we'll be another half an hour. So I think it was a great conversation.
That's what the phone's for. You guys can call me anytime.
Yeah. Or we could do a part
back on again.
We could have Brad write 30 of his questions on the sprayer and do a part 2. That's always possible.
Hey, I will come back anytime you guys invite me.
Cool. Awesome. We really enjoyed having you. What do you want people to remember as we wrap up this podcast?
There's a lot to remember, but I just like to tell people, don't be afraid to try something different. Don't be afraid to make that leap, especially into agriculture. It is so incredibly important that we keep these fields open, keep cows on them, keep citrus groves going. We have to eat. Agriculture is incredibly important, and someone has to do it. There's no way around it.
Yep.
Brad, truer words were never spoke, I don't think.
Yep. That's what this is all about.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks to everybody out there who's watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's very nice meeting you guys.
Everybody take care.
Thanks.
All right.